The royal ship landed with a force that shook the ground. It was massive, elegant, and decorated with symbols that glowed with their own light. The humans and Crithians who had been arguing moments before now stood in silence, watching as the ship's doors opened. Queen Velmora emerged, and Taesung understood immediately why she ruled an empire. She was huge, standing at least 8 feet tall with scales that looked like polished black stone. Her eyes were like molten gold, burning with an intensity that made him want to look away. She wore armor that seemed to be made of living metal, shifting and flowing as she moved. Behind her came guards, all heavily armed, all watching everything with careful eyes. But what struck Taesung most was the emptiness in her expression. This was a woman who had lost everything and had built walls around her heart to survive. War Master Gal immediately knelt. "My queen, the heir lives. She is here." Velmora's eyes swept across the gathered crowd until they found Lyra. For a moment her expression cracked, showing something raw and painful underneath. Then the wall came back up. "Clear the area," she commanded. "I will speak with the child alone." "No," Taesung said before he could stop himself. Every weapon turned toward him. He could feel the targeting lasers on his chest, but he didn't move, didn't let go of Lyra. Velmora looked at him for the first time. "You dare refuse a command from your queen?" "You're not my queen." "And I promised Lyra I would protect her. I keep my promises. You are human. You are nothing. You will release the heir now or you will die." General Suk stepped forward. "The child is in human custody. We cannot simply hand her over without proper negotiations." "There will be no negotiations," Velmora said coldly. "She is mine. She is Crithian. She belongs to the Empire. She belongs to herself," Taesung repeated. "She's not property." Velmora moved forward, and despite his fear, Taesung stood his ground. The queen stopped a few feet away, looking down at him with those burning eyes. "You will move, human." "No." "Then you will die." "Then I die." They stared at each other. Taesung could see death in her eyes, could feel the power radiating from her, but he couldn't back down. He had promised. That was when Lyra spoke up, her voice small but clear. "Appa, it's okay. I want to talk to her." Taesung looked down at her. "Are you sure?" Lyra nodded. She looked at Velmora with curious eyes. "Are you really my mother?" The question hung in the air. Velmora's expression changed, the coldness cracking just a little. She knelt down, bringing herself closer to Lyra's height, though she was still much larger. "Yes," she said, and her voice was different now, softer. "I am Velmora. I am your mother. I thought you were dead. For 2 years I believed my daughter was gone." "I'm sorry," Lyra said. "I don't remember you. I was very small when the ship crashed." Velmora flinched as if struck. "You do not remember me?" "No, but Father Human, I mean Appa, he told me about you." "He said you were probably a great leader, and brave, Father Human." Velmora looked at Taesung with confusion and anger. "You taught her to call you father?" "She chose that herself," Taesung said quietly. "I never asked her to. This is wrong. This is—" Velmora stopped, looking at her daughter again. "You have been living with this human?" "For 2 years?" "Yes. Appa takes care of me. He teaches me things and makes me food and reads me stories at night. And when I have bad dreams, he stays with me until I feel better." With each word, Velmora's expression became more complicated. She looked between Lyra and Taesung, trying to understand. "He is human," she said. "We are at war with humans. They are the enemy. Appa is not my enemy. He's my father. I am your mother." "I know," Lyra said, and her scales shifted to show sadness. "But I don't know you." "I know him." The words hit Velmora like a physical blow. She stood up, turning away, and for a moment Taesung saw her shoulders shake. Was she crying? Could Crithians cry? War Master Gal stepped forward. "My queen, the heir must return to the Empire. She must be prepared for her role. The human can be compensated for his care." "Compensated?" Bitna said angrily. "You think you can just pay him off?" "This is his daughter. This is the heir to the throne," Gal said. "She is more important than one human's feelings." General Suk nodded. "For once I agree with the Crithian. The child should be with her own people. Humans and Crithians don't mix." "Then why did he save me?" Lyra asked suddenly. Everyone looked at her. "If humans and Crithians don't mix, why did Appa save me from the crashed ship? Why did he take care of me when I was hurt? Why does he love me?" "Because—" Taesung started then stopped. How could he explain it? Because you needed help. And because you're you. The species doesn't matter. Velmora turned back to look at him. You saved her from the crash? You found her? Yes. And you knew she was Krithian? Yes. We killed your family, Velmora said. I researched you, human called Taesung. We destroyed your colony when you were young. Your parents, your sister, all dead because of my empire. Yet you saved a Krithian child. Taesung met her eyes. The war killed my family. Not this child. She hadn't done anything wrong. She was just scared and hurt and alone. So you took her. You raised her. You taught her to call you father. Velmora's voice was full of emotions Taesung couldn't name. Why? Because she needed me. And honestly, I needed her too. Velmora walked around them slowly, studying them. She looked at how Lyra held Taesung's hand, at the way she leaned against him for comfort. She saw the toys in his pockets, the lunchbox he still carried, the bandages on his hands from working to support them. Show me where you lived, she commanded. What? Your home. Show it to me. Now. Taesung led her to his small house, Lyra walking between them. The Queen's guards followed, as did General Suk and her soldiers and War Master Gal with his troops. The whole strange parade walked through the settlement to Taesung's modest home. When they entered, Velmora stopped and looked around. The house was simple but clean. There were dishes in the sink from breakfast, school books on the table, drawings that Lyra had made stuck to the walls, a blanket fort in the corner that they hadn't taken down yet from last week, photos of Lyra at different ages showing her growth. Velmora picked up one of the drawings. It showed a tall figure and a small figure holding hands. The small figure had scales, the tall figure didn't. At the top, in careful letters, it said, Me and Appa. The Queen's hand shook as she held the paper. She went to Lyra's room. It was small but filled with love. Books on shelves. A bed with stuffed animals. More drawings. A nightlight shaped like a star. Everything a child's room should have. You did this, Velmora said quietly. You gave her all of this. I gave her what I could. It wasn't much, but it was everything. Velmora turned to face him and there were tears on her scales. Krithians could cry. You gave her a childhood, safety, love, things I could not give her because I was too busy with war and ruling. You didn't know she was alive. That does not change. What you did. She looked at Lyra. My daughter. I'm so sorry. I failed you. I was not there when you needed me. But this human, this enemy, he was there. He saved you when I could not. Lyra walked over to her mother. It's not your fault. Appa says sometimes bad things happen and it's nobody's fault. Velmora knelt down again and this time she gently touched Lyra's face. You have become wise. Appa teaches me lots of things. I can see that. Velmora stood and faced Taesung. The coldness in her eyes was gone, replaced by something complicated and painful. You have done what I could not. You have been a better parent than I have been. I should hate you for it. But I cannot. What happens now? Taesung asked, his voice rough with emotion. Now we must decide what is best for Lyra. 3 months later, Taesung stood on a balcony overlooking the Krithian homeworld. The planet was beautiful in a way that took his breath away. Crystal towers rose into the purple sky and 3 moons hung overhead like giant pearls. He still couldn't believe he was here in the royal palace living among Krithians. It had been Velmora's decision. After seeing his home and understanding what he had done for Lyra, the Queen had made an offer that shocked everyone. You will come to the palace, she had said. You will be given the title of honor parent. You will help me raise Lyra, teach her both human and Krithian ways. You will be protected by royal decree, General Suk had argued. War Master Gal had protested. But Velmora had been firm. Lyra needed both of them, she said. And if Taesung had proven anything, it was that he would do what was best for the child. So now Taesung lived in the palace, in rooms that were bigger than his entire house on New Gangwa had been. He wore clothes made of materials he couldn't pronounce and ate foods he had never heard of. Court officials taught him Krithian customs and language. It was overwhelming and strange, and sometimes he missed his simple life on the farm. But then Lyra would run into his room in the morning, jumping on his bed and calling, Appa. Wake up, we have lessons today. And he knew he had made the right choice. The arrangement was unusual, but it was working. Taesung taught Lyra human history, human values, and human kindness. Velmora taught her Krithian traditions, royal duties, and the complexities of ruling an empire. Together, they were raising a child who belonged to both worlds. "You are thinking again," Velmora said, joining him on the balcony. "You do that often." Taesung had gotten used to her presence over the past months. She was less frightening now, though still impressive. She wore simpler clothes in private, and her eyes didn't burn with quite so much intensity. "Just remembering where I was 3 months ago," he said. "It feels like a different life." "Do you regret coming here?" "No, this is where Lyra needs to be. And if she needs to be here, then I need to be here too." Velmora nodded, looking out at the city. "You are a strange human, Taesung. Most would have taken the money I offered and left. I told you she's my daughter. You don't abandon your daughter for money." "No," Velmora agreed. "You do not." They stood in comfortable silence for a moment. Over the months, they had developed an odd sort of friendship. They disagreed about many things, argued about how to raise Lyra, and came from completely different worlds. But they both loved the same child, and that created a bond stronger than either had expected. "There will be a state dinner tonight," Velmora said. "Important ambassadors from the human government will be there." "I heard. Ambassador Hunsol, right?" "Yes, he claims to come in peace to negotiate a treaty. But I do not trust him." "Why not?" "Because men like him see opportunities, not people. He will look at Lyra and see a tool. He will look at you and see a weakness to exploit." She was right. When Ambassador Hansol arrived that evening, his smile was too perfect and his words too smooth. He bowed to the Queen, nodded to Lyra, and looked at Taesung with barely hidden disgust. "So you're the infamous honor parent," Hansol said. "The human who chose aliens over his own kind." "I chose my daughter," Taesung replied. "A daughter who isn't even your species." How touching. The dinner was tense. Hansol spoke about peace, but his eyes told a different story. He kept looking at Lyra, calculating, planning. Taesung felt uneasy the entire time. His instincts were proven right 2 days later. Taesung was teaching Lyra to read human poetry when she suddenly gasped and grabbed her head. "Lyra, what's wrong?" "Something bad," she whispered. Her telepathic abilities had grown stronger with training. "Someone wants to hurt you, Appa. Someone here in the palace." Before he could react, the door burst open. It wasn't guards or servants. It was a Krithian noble named Ravan, along with several armed followers. Taesung recognized him from court. He was one of the officials who had opposed Taesung's presence from the beginning. "The human corrupts the heir," Ravan declared. "This ends today." Taesung pushed Lyra behind him. "If you have a problem with me, take it up with the Queen. The Queen has been corrupted as well. She has forgotten what it means to be Krithian. She allows this human to poison the heir's mind with weak human values." One of Ravan's followers raised a weapon. Taesung had no way to defend himself. He was going to die here in a palace far from home, killed by the very people he had been living among. But Lyra stepped in front of him. "No," she said, her scales flashing with angry red colors. "You will not hurt my Appa. Move aside, heir. This does not concern you. It does concern me. He's my father." Ravan laughed. "He is human." "He is nothing." He never finished the sentence. Velmora appeared in the doorway like a nightmare made real. Her scales were black as death, her eyes burning with rage. She moved faster than Taesung could follow, disarming Ravan's followers and throwing the noble himself against the wall. "You threaten my daughter's father," she hissed, her voice deadly quiet. "You enter my palace with weapons. You dare to tell me what it means to be Krithian? My queen I only sought to protect. You sought to murder the one person in this empire who has shown us what true strength is. Not strength of weapons or hatred, but strength of compassion and sacrifice." She lifted him off the ground with one hand. "You are banished. All of you. Leave my sight and never return." The guards dragged them away. Velmora turned to Taesung and Lyra, and her expression softened. "Are you both unharmed?" "We're okay," Lyra said, running to hug her mother. "You came just in time. I sensed your distress through our telepathic bond." She looked at Taesung. "I am sorry. This should never have happened. It's not your fault. It is. There are those who will never accept you, who will always see you as an enemy no matter what you do." "I know," Taesung said, "but that doesn't change anything." "I'm not leaving." Velmora smiled, something she did rarely. "Good. Because Lyra would never forgive me if I let anything happen to you." That night, Velmora called a meeting of the Royal Council. Taesung was there, standing beside her as she addressed the nobles and military leaders. "This human, Taesung, is under my personal protection, she announced. Any who harm him answer to me. Any who question his position question my judgment. He is honor parent to the heir, and that title carries the full weight of the crown. There were murmurs, some angry, some accepting, but no one dared to argue openly. After the meeting, Velmora spoke with Taesung privately. I have been thinking, she said, about the war, about why we fight, and I cannot remember anymore. It has gone on so long that the original reasons are lost. Now we fight because we have always fought. That's usually how it works when I want to change that. For Lyra, for the future. She looked at him intently. Lyra exists between both our peoples. She is Crithian but raised with human values. She is the heir to my throne but calls a human her father. She is proof that our species can coexist. What are you saying? I am saying that perhaps it is time to try for peace. Real peace, not just a temporary ceasefire, and I need your help to achieve it. Over the next weeks, Velmora and Taesung worked together to create a plan. They would propose cultural exchange programs between human and Crithian youth. They would open trade negotiations. They would use Lyra's story as an example of what was possible. It wasn't easy. There were politicians who resisted, military leaders who wanted to continue the war, and common people on both sides who had lost too much to forgive. But slowly things began to change. Bitna came to the palace, helping to coordinate the exchange programs. Kyo became an advisor on cultural understanding. Even Ambassador Hansol, despite his initial prejudice, eventually saw the value in the peace initiative, and at the center of it all was Lyra, growing up between two worlds, learning both human and Crithian ways, showing everyone that being different didn't have to mean being enemies. One evening, Taesung found Lyra in the palace gardens. She was sitting between Velmora and himself, watching the sunset. She was getting older now, almost ready to start taking on royal duties, but in this moment she was just a child sitting with her parents. Appa, she said suddenly, do you remember when I first called you Father Human? I remember. You were so small then? I didn't understand what a father was supposed to be, but now I do. She looked at him with those deep, expressive eyes. A father is someone who stays even when it's hard, someone who protects you and teaches you and loves you no matter what. That's right, Taesung said, his voice thick with emotion. You taught me that family isn't about species or blood. It's about who stands beside you. She took Velmora's hand and Taesung's hand, holding them both. And who stays even when it's dangerous? Velmora squeezed her daughter's hand. You have become wise, my child. Wiser than many adults. I had good teachers, Lyra said, smiling. Both of you. They sat together as the sun set, painting the sky in colors that existed on both human and Crithian worlds. In the gardens below, children from both species played together, the first generation to grow up without war. Taesung thought about how far they had come, from that crashed ship on Velthara Prime, where a dying warrior had asked a soldier to protect a child, from running and hiding, always afraid of being discovered. 2 years had passed since they arrived on New Gangwa. The colony was beautiful, with green fields and mountains that reminded Taesung of old pictures of Earth. Most of the settlers were Korean families who had come here to start fresh, away from the war and the crowded inner worlds. Taesung and Lyra lived in a small house on the edge of a farming settlement. Bitna had come with them and lived nearby, helping them maintain their cover story. As far as the neighbors knew, Taesung was a widowed farmer with an adopted daughter who had a rare skin condition. That explained why Lyra had to wear special clothes and a holographic disguise when she went outside. Lyra was growing up fast. She looked about 7 years old now in human terms, though Taesung knew Crithian development was different from human. She had started calling him Appa instead of Father Human after hearing other children use the Korean word for father. It made his heart warm every time she said it. Appa, can I go to Minji's house after school? Lyra asked one morning. She was wearing her holographic disguise, which made her look like a human girl with tan skin and dark hair. Did you finish your homework? Taesung asked, packing her lunch. Yes, I finished it last night. Please, Appa? Taesung smiled. She had become so much like a human child. She played with friends, went to school, and complained about homework just like any other kid. Sometimes he almost forgot that underneath the disguise she was Crithian. All right, but be home before dark. Thank you, Appa. She hugged him and ran out the door, her backpack bouncing on her shoulders. Taesung watched her go, feeling that familiar mix of happiness and fear. He was happy to see her living a normal life, but always afraid that someone would discover the truth. That afternoon, everything changed. Tae-sung was working in his small medical clinic when he heard the emergency sirens. He ran outside and saw smoke rising from the eastern fields. A ship had crashed, burning as it lay broken in the dirt. Without thinking, Tae-sung grabbed his medical bag and ran toward the crash. Other people from the settlement were already there. The ship was Krithian, small and badly damaged. Tae-sung pushed through the crowd and climbed into the wreckage. There were 3 crew members inside. 2 were already dead, but 1 was still breathing. Tae-sung worked quickly, trying to stop the bleeding and stabilize the injured Krithian. The alien's eyes opened, looking at him with confusion and pain. Human. Helping. The Krithian whispered in rough human language. Don't talk. Save your strength. But the Krithian's eyes suddenly went wide. He was looking past Tae-sung, toward the crowd gathered outside. Tae-sung turned and felt his blood run cold. Lyra was there. She must have heard the sirens and run from school. She was standing at the edge of the crowd, still wearing her disguise but staring at the Krithian with intense focus. The injured Krithian made a strange sound, something between a gasp and a word. Royal. Telepathic signature, impossible. Then he died, his eyes staring at nothing. Tae-sung climbed out of the wreck, his mind racing. The Krithian had recognized something about Lyra. Had he sensed her telepathic abilities? Did that mean other Krithians could find her the same way? Lyra, go home, he said firmly. Now. She looked at him with worried eyes but nodded and ran off. That night, Tae-sung couldn't sleep. He sat at the kitchen table trying to figure out what to do. Bitna came over, looking just as worried. We need to leave, she said. If that Krithian recognized her, others will come looking. Where can we go? We've already run so far. Then we run farther. But they didn't get the chance. 2 days later, the military ships arrived. Not just Krithian ships, but human ones too. They came from opposite directions and entered orbit around New Gangwa at almost the same time. Tae-sung was trying to pack when soldiers knocked on his door. They were human soldiers, led by a stern-looking woman with a general's insignia on her uniform. Tae-sung, formerly of the Terran Defense Corps, the general said. I am General Suk. You and the child called Lyra need to come with us immediately. We haven't done anything wrong, Tae-sung said, positioning himself between the general and Lyra's room. We're not here to arrest you. We're here to protect you, and to secure a very valuable asset. She's not an asset. She's a child. She's the heir to the Krithian throne, General Suk said coldly, and she's the key to ending this war. We can use her to negotiate peace or to pressure the Krithians into surrender. You mean use her as a hostage? I mean use her for the good of humanity. How many human lives is one alien child worth, soldier? Before Tae-sung could answer, there was a loud sound from outside. Through the window, he could see Krithian soldiers landing in the street. They were heavily armed and moving with military precision. Too late, General Suk muttered. They found her too. The Krithian soldiers surrounded the house. Their leader was enormous, with dark red scales and scars covering his armor. He spoke through a translator device. I am War Master Gal, commander of Queen Velmora's guard. You will surrender the royal heir immediately. General Suk stepped outside, her own soldiers forming a line. The child is in human custody. She will be protected by human law. She is Krithian. She belongs to the Empire. She belongs to herself. Tae-sung shouted, coming out of the house with Lyra behind him. She's not property for either of you to fight over. War Master Gal looked at him, then at Lyra. The child's holographic disguise had failed at some point, showing her true Krithian form. Her scales were rippling with colors, showing her fear and confusion. You are the human who has kept her hidden, Gal said. Why? Because I promised to protect her. Protect her? You are her enemy. I'm her father, Tae-sung said firmly. There was a moment of shocked silence. Then Lyra ran forward and grabbed Tae-sung's hand. Appa, I'm scared, she said. Gal stared at them. She calls you father? This is unusual. This is an abomination, General Suk said. A human raising an alien as if it were his own child. It's unnatural. What's unnatural is using a child as a weapon, Bitna said, appearing from behind the house with a rifle in her hands. Several other settlers had come too, armed and looking determined. This is our neighbor, one of them said. Our friend. You'll have to go through us to take his daughter. The situation was reaching a breaking point. Human and Krithian soldiers faced each other with weapons ready. The settlers stood behind Taesung, protecting him and Lyra. Then Lyra did something that nobody expected. She closed her eyes, and her scales began to glow with a bright, pulsing light. The air around her seemed to shimmer. Taesung felt something like a presence in his mind, gentle and warm. It was Lyra's telepathic ability, stronger than it had ever been before. Everyone stopped, frozen by the strange sensation. And then Lyra spoke, but not with her voice. Her words seemed to echo in everyone's mind, humans and Krithians alike. "Mother, where are you? I'm here. I'm alive. Please, I need you." The message pulsed out into space, far beyond the planet, reaching across the stars with desperate hope. War Master Gal fell to one knee, his weapon dropping from his hands. "The royal call," he whispered. "She summons the queen." General Suk looked shaken. "What just happened?" "She called for her real mother," Taesung said quietly. "The queen?" Lyra opened her eyes, looking tired and scared. "Appa, I felt her. She's coming. She heard me." Taesung picked her up, holding her close. "It's okay, sweetheart. It's going to be okay." But he wasn't sure that was true. Queen Velmora was coming, and when she arrived, everything would change. The thought terrified him, not because he feared the queen would hurt him, but because he feared she would take Lyra away. And after everything they had been through, after all the time they had spent together, Taesung didn't know if he could survive losing her. The stars above began to shimmer as ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel. More ships than Taesung had ever seen before, appearing like a swarm of metal insects. They were Krithian vessels bearing the royal insignia. The queen had arrived. Everyone watched the sky, waiting to see what would happen next. Taesung held Lyra tighter, and she buried her face in his shoulder. "I'm scared, Appa," she whispered. "Me too," he admitted. "Me too." 6 months had passed since Taesung found Lyra in that crashed ship. 6 months of running, hiding, and learning how to take care of an alien child. They were now on Meridian Hub, a large space station that floated at the edge of neutral territory. It was the kind of place where nobody asked too many questions as long as you had money to pay. Taesung worked as an underground medic now. People called him Doc Jin, and they came to him when they couldn't go to a real hospital. He treated smugglers with laser burns, criminals with knife wounds, and refugees with diseases that had no name. He didn't ask where they came from or what they had done. He just patched them up and took their money. The money was important because he had Lyra to take care of. She was hidden in their small apartment most of the time. The apartment was barely bigger than a closet, with just enough room for a bed, a small table, and a tiny bathroom. But it was safe, and safety was more valuable than comfort. Lyra had grown in the past 6 months. She was taller now, and her scales had darkened slightly to a more silver-blue color. She was learning to speak human language, though her accent was strange and she sometimes mixed up words. But what amazed Taesung most was how smart she was. She learned things incredibly fast. "Father Human, look," Lyra said one morning, holding up a book. It was one of the children's books that Taesung had bought from a street vendor. "I read this page all by myself." Taesung smiled. She always called him Father Human. He had tried to teach her to just say father, or even to call him by his name, but she insisted on the full title. He had stopped correcting her. Honestly, he kind of liked it now. "That's great, Lyra," he said, sitting down next to her. "Can you read it to me?" She read slowly and carefully, her small finger pointing at each word. When she finished, she looked up at him with those big dark eyes waiting for approval. "Perfect," Taesung said, ruffling the small crest on her head. She made a happy chirping sound. This was their routine. During the day, while Taesung slept after working all night, Lyra would read or play quietly with the toys he made for her from scrap metal and wire. In the evening, before he went to work, they would spend time together. He would teach her new words, tell her stories, or they would eat dinner together. But it wasn't always easy. Lyra asked questions that Taesung didn't know how to answer. "Father Human, why do I look different from you?" she asked one night. "Because you're Krithian and I'm human. We're different species." "What is species?" "Different kinds of living things. Like how some animals have fur and some have scales." Lyra touched her own scales thoughtfully. "Are there other Krithians here?" "Maybe. But we have to be very careful, Lyra. Some people might want to hurt you if they knew what you were." "Why would they want to hurt me?" How could he explain war to a child? How could he tell her that her people and his people were killing each other across the galaxy? Because sometimes people are afraid of things that are different, he said finally. But I'm not afraid of you, and I won't let anyone hurt you. Lyra hugged him tightly. I'm not afraid when I'm with you, Father Human. Those moments made everything worth it. The constant fear, the lack of sleep, the dangerous work. All of it was worth it to see her safe and happy. But their situation was becoming more complicated. Bitna was the first person on the station to discover the truth. She was a smuggler, tough and cynical with short black hair and a scar across her left cheek. She had come to Taesung 3 times for medical treatment, and each time she had looked around his apartment with suspicious eyes. The 4th time she came, she didn't have any injuries. She just pushed her way into the apartment and closed the door behind her. All right, Doc Jin, or whatever your real name is, she said. I want the truth. You're hiding something, and I need to know what it is before it gets us all killed. Taesung's heart raced. His hand moved toward the weapon he kept hidden under the table. I don't know what you're talking about, he said. Don't play games with me. I've seen the holographic projector you use. I've heard strange sounds coming from this apartment. And I saw something move past the window yesterday. Something small and definitely not human. At that moment, Lyra walked out of the bathroom. She froze when she saw Bitna, her scales suddenly shifting to a dark, fearful gray color. Bitna stared at her, then at Taesung, then back at Lyra. Holy stars, she whispered. That's a Krithian child. Please, Taesung said, stepping between them. Please don't tell anyone. She's just a child. She hasn't done anything wrong. Bitna was quiet for a long moment. Her hand was on her weapon, and Taesung prepared himself to fight if he had to. He wouldn't let anyone take Lyra. But then Bitna's expression changed. The hardness in her eyes softened, replaced by something that looked like pain. How old is she? Bitna asked quietly. I'm not sure. Maybe 5 in human years. Bitna sat down heavily on the bed. I had a daughter once. She was 6 when she died. The Krithians bombed our colony. Taesung didn't know what to say. I hated them, Bitna continued. I still hate them. But this, she looked at Lyra. This is just a baby. She was in a crashed ship, Taesung explained. Her guardian died and asked me to protect her. I couldn't just leave her there. You're insane, Bitna said, but there was no anger in her voice. Do you know what will happen if anyone finds out? The military, the bounty hunters, anyone? I know. Bitna stood up and walked to the door. Taesung tensed, ready for her to call for security, but she stopped with her hand on the door handle. I'll keep your secret, she said. But you need help. This station isn't safe anymore. There's a man named Kyo, a Krithian hiding in the lower levels. He's a scientist or something. If anyone can help you, it's him. Why are you helping us? Taesung asked. Bitna looked at Lyra again and her expression was sad. Because my daughter never got a second chance. Maybe this one should. She left without another word. The next day, with Bitna's help, Taesung found Kyo. The Krithian was older. His scales faded to a dull brown color. He lived in a cramped workshop filled with strange equipment and devices. When Kyo saw Lyra, his eyes went wide. This cannot be, he whispered. He moved closer, studying her carefully. These markings, this coloring. Child, what is your name? Lyra, she said shyly, hiding behind Taesung's leg. Kyo looked at Taesung with an expression of shock and fear. Do you know who this child is? A Krithian. That's all I know. No, Kyo said. This is no ordinary Krithian. Look at her scales. See how they shimmer with multiple colors? That only happens in the royal bloodline. This child is nobility. Perhaps even... He stopped, looking frightened. She might be the heir. The daughter of Queen Velmora. Taesung felt cold. The queen? Her ship crashed on Velthera Prime 6 months ago. Everyone believed the heir died in the crash. If people know she's alive, if they know you have her... Kyo didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. What do I do? Taesung asked. Run, Kyo said simply. Take her and run as far as you can. And pray that nobody finds you. That night, Taesung packed their few belongings. Bitna had already arranged transport to a remote human colony called New Gangwa. It was far from the war, far from everything. Father Human, are we leaving? Lyra asked, watching him pack. Yes, sweetheart. We have to go somewhere safer. Will you stay with me? Always, Taesung promised. I'll always stay with you. Lyra smiled and her scales shifted to a happy golden color. She didn't understand the danger they were in. She just knew that her father human would protect her, and Tae-sung would, no matter what it cost him. The explosions were getting closer. Tae-sung pressed his back against the cold stone wall of the ruined temple, his heart pounding in his chest. Dust and debris rained down from the ceiling as another blast shook the ancient structure. He could hear the sound of gunfire outside, the screams of soldiers and the horrible screeching noise that Krithian weapons made when they fired. He was alone. His unit had been ambushed 3 hours ago on the outskirts of the city. Tae-sung had been separated from them during the chaos, running blindly through the ruins until he found this temple. He clutched his medical bag tightly. It was all he had left besides his sidearm and a half-empty canteen of water. The temple was old, built by whatever civilization had lived on Velthara Prime, before humans and Krithians started fighting over it. The walls were covered in strange symbols that glowed faintly in the darkness. Tae-sung moved deeper into the building, hoping to find a place to hide until the fighting passed. That was when he saw the crashed ship. It had torn through the back wall of the temple, leaving a gaping hole that opened to the sky. The vessel was small, sleek, and definitely Krithian in design. The metal hull was still smoking from the crash. Tae-sung's training kicked in immediately. Where there was a crash, there might be survivors. And survivors might have information or supplies he could use. He approached carefully, his hand on his weapon. The Krithians were the enemy. They had killed thousands of humans in this war. They had destroyed his home colony when he was young, killing his parents and younger sister. He had every reason to hate them, but he was also a medic. And medics helped people, even enemies. The ship's door was damaged, hanging open at an odd angle. Tae-sung climbed inside using his flashlight to see in the dim interior. The cockpit was a mess of broken equipment and sparking wires. And there, slumped in the pilot's seat, was a Krithian warrior. She was dying. Tae-sung could see that immediately. Her armor was cracked and broken, and dark purple blood pooled beneath her. The Krithian's scales were a deep blue color, and her eyes, when they opened to look at him, were bright yellow. She tried to reach for a weapon, but she was too weak. Her hand fell back to her side. Tae-sung raised his hands, showing he meant no harm. "I'm a medic," he said, though he doubted she understood human language. The Krithian's eyes moved past him, looking toward the back of the ship. She made a sound, something between a hiss and a whisper. Then she raised one shaking hand and pointed. Tae-sung turned and saw the child. It was so small, huddled in the corner of the cargo area, wrapped in a torn blanket. At first, he thought it might be some kind of animal or pet. But then it moved, and he saw its face. It was definitely Krithian, but young. Very young. The child's scales were a pale silver color that seemed to shimmer and change as he watched. Its eyes were huge and dark, filled with fear. Tae-sung looked back at the warrior. She was watching him with desperate intensity. "Please," the Krithian said, and Tae-sung was shocked to hear her speak in heavily accented human language. "Protect a child, please." Blood bubbled from her mouth. She was seconds from death. Tae-sung didn't know what to say. This was insane. He couldn't take care of an alien child. He was a soldier, a deserter now, running for his life. He couldn't even take care of himself. But the Krithian warrior was looking at him with such hope in her dying eyes. And when he looked at the child again, it was staring at him with the same desperate expression. It was terrified and alone. Tae-sung thought about his sister. She had been about this age when she died. He remembered holding her hand as the evacuation sirens wailed. "Okay," he heard himself say. "Okay, I'll protect the child." The Krithian warrior's expression softened. She said something in her own language, words Tae-sung didn't understand. Then she died, her body going still, her eyes staring at nothing. Tae-sung stood there for a moment, processing what he had just agreed to do. Then another explosion rocked the temple, reminding him that he needed to move. He went to the child and knelt down slowly, trying not to scare it more. "Hey," he said softly, "I'm not going to hurt you. I'm going to help you, okay?" The child didn't respond, just stared at him with those huge dark eyes. Tae-sung could see now that it was injured. There was a deep cut on its arm, and it was holding its side like something hurt there too. He opened his medical bag and took out supplies. The child flinched when he reached for it, but it didn't run. Slowly, carefully, Tae-sung cleaned and bandaged the arm wound. The child's blood was purple like the warrior's, but lighter, almost pink. When he pressed gently on its side, the child made a small whimpering sound. "Broken rib, maybe too," Tae-sung muttered to himself. He wrapped the child's torso in a compression bandage, working as gently as he could. The whole time the child just watched him, not making any other sound. When he was finished, Tae-sung sat back. "When did you last eat?" The child, of course, didn't answer. But Tae-sung pulled out one of his ration bars anyway and broke off a piece. He held it out. The child sniffed it suspiciously, then took it with small clawed hands. It ate the piece quickly, then looked at him for more. Tae-sung smiled despite everything. "Hungry, huh? Here, eat slowly." He gave the child the rest of the bar and watched it eat. It was such a small thing, probably equivalent to a 5 or 6-year-old human child. Its scales caught the light from his flashlight, shimmering in colors he couldn't quite name. Beautiful in an alien way. Another explosion, closer this time. Tae-sung stood up and looked around the crashed ship. He grabbed a blanket and wrapped it around the child, then carefully picked it up. It was lighter than he expected, and after a moment it wrapped its arms around his neck and pressed its face against his shoulder. "All right, kid," Tae-sung said. "We need to get out of here. Both of us." He climbed out of the ship and moved toward the hole in the temple wall. Outside, the sky was dark with smoke. He could see fires burning in the distance and hear the ongoing battle. He had no idea where to go or how they would survive. All he knew was that he had made a promise to a dying warrior, and Tae-sung always kept his promises, even the impossible ones. The child held on to him tighter as they moved into the ruins. Tae-sung adjusted his grip, making sure the child was secure. "It's going to be okay," he whispered, not sure if he was trying to comfort the child or himself. "I've got you now. I won't let anything happen to you." The child made a small sound, something that might have been trust, and Tae-sung started walking, leaving the dead warrior and the crashed ship behind, stepping into an uncertain future with an enemy's child in his arms.